feel like Kirsty's copying what Owen said. It's not it. The Lord is speaking to us partway through. Anyway, so I just wanted to start by asking really whether any of you have had this experience before, where slightly uncomfortable experience, I guess, where you've been walking down the road alone, maybe late at night, and you start to hear footsteps behind you, and maybe those footsteps start to get faster, and you try and tell yourself it's probably nothing. It's probably just someone trying to get to where they need to be. I'm sure it's totally fine. You try and tell yourself that, but something innate inside you tells yourself, no, something's wrong. There's something or someone out to get you behind you. There's someone following you, and they might have some very nefarious motives. And before you can even try and convince yourself that you're being ridiculous, your body starts to plan your defense, doesn't it? Or plan to run away. Your adrenaline starts coming, your heart starts beating, and you're just convinced that, oh my goodness, something awful is about to happen. And I think that this is something that's innate. This is just part of being human. Our bodies have taught us that to protect ourselves, we need to imagine the worst and plan for the worst to protect ourselves, which sometimes works really well for people. But I think that it often means that as human beings, we live with this kind of sense of impending doom, that there's something just behind us that is out to get us. And inevitably it will catch up with us someday. I want to talk to you about, I'm just going to talk about one verse. The Lord is my shepherd, and it's a beloved passage. I'm just going to talk about actually just one half of a verse, really, which is, surely goodness and mercy follow me all the days of my life. This verse has been really kind of quietly important to me over the last few years, as I've just found that it feels like, probably not every time, but it almost feels like every single time I come and I seek the Lord and I ask for his direction in my life, this is the whisper that I get in my ear. Surely goodness and mercy follow you all of the days of your life, Kirsty. Goodness and mercy are following you. Again and again and again. And I found that this verse has carried me through life's ups and downs. But more than that, it's taught my heart and my soul and my body that I do not need to fear what lies in wait behind me. As I walk through life, there is no evil creature following me, and I'm not afraid to look behind me because I know what is following me. I look over my right shoulder and there is God's goodness. I look over my left shoulder and there is his mercy. And I really think that this truth can teach us and teach our hearts how to respond in every circumstance of life. Before I go into that, I just want to give a moment for the word surely at the beginning of this Bible verse. It's one of my favourite words to find at the beginning of a verse in the Bible, because the word that we translate as surely, it means that it is a sure thing. This is a truth. It's a truth from God. It's something that we can be absolutely certain of. So when we see this word surely at the beginning of a Bible verse or a Bible passage, you know that you're about to get a truth. Something that is true, something that you can be absolutely 100% certain is true. So when we hear that surely, I can be absolutely 100% certain that God's goodness will follow me all the days of my life. It's true. It's a promise of God. And if we can grasp that certainty, we can really teach ourselves it, I think it makes a massive difference. I think it can be life-changing for us as human beings. And so I'm going to talk a bit about why I think this truth is so important for us to understand, and I'm going to start by looking at God's goodness, and then I'm going to talk about God's mercy, and then I'm going to sort of pull it all together at the end. And it's a relatively brief talk, and then hopefully we'll have a bit of time to reflect and respond together afterwards as well. So, surely goodness follows me all the days of my life. Knowing this, I think, is so, so important, because as Owen was just talking about, we are living in a world where we are just surrounded by darkness. We are confronted by so much bad stuff constantly, all the time. We are living in this broken, fallen world. And it is easy to forget that we have a good God who created the world, and he said, it's good. A good God who created you all, mankind, and said it is very good. And as Owen was talking about a few minutes ago, but when that darkness, the darkness of a fallen world crashes around us, when we hear about war and famine and corrupt governments across the globe, for me, I know many of you will have your own experiences, but I go into work every day. I work with adults who are experiencing the worst kinds of diseases, living with dementia, carrying the burden of caring for people with dementia. Young people, 18-year-olds with diseases that mean that they're not going to live very many years longer. And I speak to their mothers, and it's just awful. The things that I see at work, people being abused and neglected, vulnerable people. And in some ways I can put that in a box because it's work, even though I try and let myself stay soft to it. But what I find even harder is when it's someone I know and love, when it's part of our church family. Again, Owen kind of mentioned it. I probably know only the tip of the iceberg of what we're going through as a church family. But I know that we've got people in this room who are struggling with long-term mental health issues, who have had recent life-changing, life-altering health diagnoses, which they're going to have to walk through. I know that there are people struggling with following the death of a loved one or the loss of an unborn child. And I think it's so easy to believe in the face of so much darkness and suffering that when we look behind you, when we look behind us, there's only more darkness and suffering following us. The next disaster is surely just around the corner, just behind us. But this verse tells us, the Bible tells us that is a lie. When we look over our left shoulder, it is not more darkness following us. It is God's goodness. It's God's goodness chasing after us. The light is coming. Not only does his goodness follow us, but so does his mercy. And what an incredible truth that is for a messed up sinner like me. When I am impatient, when I snap at my kids, when I bicker with my husband, when I give in to my most sinful desires, when I put anything and everything that I can possibly think of before God, when I care more about what people think of me than what God thinks of me, when I care more about my comfort and the things of this world and all the things I can get than I do about God and his kingdom, when I let the people I love down, when I let God down again and again and again, and I feel the weight of sin heavy on my soul, and I feel that guilt and shame is creeping up behind me. I look over my shoulder and I don't see guilt or shame. I see God's mercy. I think we get this idea that God is like standing behind us, watching everything that we do, seeing us mess up and judging us and tutting at us. But that is not true. That's not what the Bible tells us God is doing. He's looking over our shoulder. He sees the mess we've made. He has every right to judge us and to punish us for what we've done. But instead, he brings his mercy. He is a God of mercy. There's no judgment. There's no punishment. There is only mercy for those who put their trust in him. And sometimes I think when we see all the bad stuff going on in the world around us, when we see all the bad stuff going on in our own hearts, we think that we have to do something about it. We think we've got to work harder, we've got to try harder, we've got to fight against the bad stuff in the world, fight against the bad stuff inside us. And sometimes I think there is some truth to that maybe we need to take some action. But sometimes I think the right thing to do is to stop, be still, to wait, and let God's goodness and mercy catch up with us. And if you've got a Bible, I would encourage you to flick over to Exodus 14, because if you know me, you know that I can't get through a 20-minute talk without doing an Exodus narrative. That's for the theology nerds. If you talk to my husband later, he'll tell you that the whole of Psalm 23 is an Exodus narrative. It's all just the Exodus story all over again. So he actually wears the theology nerd crown in our household, but just about wins. So here we go. You're going to think, Kirsty, you're going off on a right tangent. I'm not, I promise. So Exodus 14, we see that God's people, the Israelites, they have finally escaped from slavery in Egypt. They've left Egypt. Pharaoh has let them go. They're running through the desert, or probably just walking, but they're going through the desert, and Pharaoh has changed his mind. Pharaoh changes his mind. He says, actually, I don't want you guys to leave. I'm getting you back. And he sends his armies out after them, and they are being chased by Pharaoh's armies. They are being followed by Pharaoh's armies, and they hit a massive barrier, the Red Sea. They can't, I'm going to do bear hunt now, they can't go over it, they can't go under it, they can't actually go through it. There's no way across. God's people are sure. They are sure that the death and the destruction and the probably going back to slavery of Pharaoh's armies, it's following them and it's going to catch up to them. They are sure. They're like, surely Pharaoh's armies will catch up to us. They're going to kill us, and the rest of us they're going to send back to Egypt as slaves. Surely. I can understand that, surely. I'd probably be thinking the same thing. If you look at verse 11, this is what the people say to Moses. They're cross with Moses because they feel like this is all his fault. Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us into the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than die in the desert. But this is Moses' response. Moses answered the people, do not be afraid, stand firm, and you will see the deliverance, the rescue of the Lord, that the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still. The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still. Wait. The death and destruction of Pharaoh's armies followed God's people. It chased after them, but it never catches up to them. Spoiler alert. It never catches up to them, because God's goodness and mercy was following more closely behind. The people are still. They wait for God's goodness and mercy. I would say Moses waits for God's goodness and mercy. The rest of the people are kind of forced into it against their better judgment as they see it. But you know what I like about this is it doesn't matter that they didn't really trust that God's goodness and mercy was coming. It comes anyway. I think that's really helpful. Where there was only death and destruction, where that was surely the only possible outcome, God creates a new pathway, an impossible pathway through the Red Sea. A pathway that ultimately leads to the prosperity of his people in the promised land. And just to very briefly bring in the second half of the verse, this is where God's house will be built, the representation of God's house on earth, and this is the place where, David thinks he'll get to dwell all the days of his life forever. God, where they thought that this was what was chasing us, this awful, undefeatable darkness and evil, this army of death. What catches up with them? God's goodness and mercy, a new way, a pathway. It's a long journey, but to the promised land. We are walking through this life, and we are going in one direction. This is the gospel, guys, because humankind, because we keep messing up, we keep adding to the darkness in the world. From the moment of the fall, mankind have been running towards punishment, the punishment we deserve. We've been running towards death and pain and suffering ever since the fall, because of our sin and the messed up way we do things, all the bad things we've ever thought, all the bad things we've ever said. We are just running towards death and destruction. But this is why this is the gospel. This is the good news. About 2,000 years ago, God, goodness and mercy, followed us onto the earth. God's goodness and mercy in the person of Jesus, followed us into the womb of a woman and out. God's goodness and mercy followed us through the dependency of childhood. God's goodness and mercy followed us through the ups and downs of life. And at some point there, God's goodness and mercy caught up with us. And in the person of Jesus, spent a few years with his disciples showing us what goodness and mercy looked like through miraculous healings. He healed the sick. He forgave sinners. But catching up with us wasn't enough. There came a time, because we were still heading for death and destruction. So there came a time when God's goodness and mercy in the person of Jesus overtook and ran ahead of us straight into the jaws of death and destruction and pain and suffering. Got to the finish line first so that we didn't have to. And when he did that, he shifted something fundamental in the fabric of the universe, which means that if now we would follow him, if we would follow him into death, on the other side of death, instead of finding punishment and pain and suffering, we would find a good and merciful God. God's goodness and mercy in the person of Jesus follows us through this life, and it makes a home for us in the next. His goodness and mercy in the person of Jesus made a way for us to dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Surely goodness and mercy follows us all the days of our lives. I'm not going to say much more, but I want to create a space for reflection, and then I'm going to do even more liturgy, sort of, because I'm going to get us to repeat this verse a few times. In a minute I'm going to get you to stand up, and we're going to just repeat it over and over again a few times. I think it's just a truth that we need to just preach to ourselves, to our hearts, but also if you know that you need it, know that the person next to you needs it, and know that I need it. So preach it to yourself, preach it to the people around you, preach it to me. And so we'll do that in a few minutes, and I'll lead us in that. But first, I just want to create a few moments for personal reflection, kind of continuing on with what Owen led us in a few minutes ago. So why don't you stand with me? I don't know if John is happy to come in. And you might find it helpful again to put out your hands, to close your eyes. And I've just got one question really for us to reflect on. And I always think with this sort of thing, don't force it, but I'm going to ask the Holy Spirit to come and just let God speak to you. I hope he was already speaking to you throughout the service and throughout that talk. But just let God come and examine your heart, and let him bring to the surface whatever it is that he's speaking to you about. And just to help us do that, I just want to ask this one question, which is, what is the lie that you are sure of? Maybe not consciously sure of, maybe it's a certainty deep inside your body and your soul. Maybe you are sure, surely God must be angry with me or cross with me. Surely God can't forgive me for that particular awful thing I did. Surely God is judging me. Surely, maybe it's more general, surely something bad is coming. You know, my life's been hard, surely there's just another bad thing following me, coming around the corner. Surely there's another bad thing coming for my family or for my friends or someone in our lives who seems to have had a difficult time. What is the lie that you are telling yourself is true, but it's not true? Holy Spirit, I just invite you into this room again once now. God, you're already here. You're already here, but I invite you to go deeper. Would you pray that prayer with me? Would you invite him to go deeper into your heart now? Let him in. Let him speak to you. Let him bring healing to those lies. Let him bring truth. Let him bring light to those dark lies in your heart and life. Holy Spirit, would you be at work in us. Would you make something new? Would you take away the lion and put a new truth in our hearts this morning?
Yes.
Come, Holy Spirit.